Hello, I'm Dana Young, Majority Leader of the Florida House of Representatives, and you're watching Tampa Bay Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and we have with us today Dana Young, who happens to be the representative for the Florida House for District 60. Dana, delighted to have you.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You've been with me before.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed our last discussion, but I'd like to kind of go over it again, because so many of the people, they saw it last time or didn't see it, and I want to give them an idea of who you are.
Great.
Let's start out with, where were you born?
I am from Tallahassee, Florida. I am a sixth-generation Floridian.
Sixth generation?
Yes,
They
sir.
wouldn't let you out, huh?
No. We came here a long time ago. I say my family must have been running from something in the late 1700s to have come to Florida in that time period.
No air conditioning, no nothing.
A lot of bugs, a lot of gators.
What did you do as far as education?
I am a proud FSU Seminole and graduated from there, and then I went on to law school at the University of Virginia and then came back.
Oh, so you did leave here for a while.
I did leave here for a while.
But somebody who was held hostage and you had to come back?
I love Florida.
No,
I had to come
Florida
back.
too.
I had to come back, but it was nice to be able to go to UVA and learn the law there and then come back and start a practice here in Tampa.
What kind of law practice did you have?
I am a land use and environmental attorney, and so I did a lot of work with development permitting, specifically environmental permitting through DEP, endangered species work, a lot of different really interesting things. And now I use a lot of my expertise in the legislature on water policy, water issues.
You know, it's interesting because there is so much going on now with the Florida environmental. Buying land, not buying land, we should use this, we should use that, we're going to bear hunt in state parks. A lot of different things going on.
Well, Florida has so many natural resources and so much land that, you know, it's natural that those issues are going to come back to the limelight every once in a while, and you're going to see a lot of water and land related issues in the news here in Florida.
Is there a big push to open more of the land to hunt? I happen to be a hunter. Full disclosure, I've hunted since I was 4 years old. Don't blame my dad. He taught me how to use a rifle. But I also am a conservationist. And I think most real hunters are in fact conservationists also. So is there a big push to open more land to hunting?
You know, I haven't heard that there's a push to open more land for hunting. There is quite a bit of public land available now through the water management districts, and obviously a lot of private land that is leased out for hunting.
Are you a hunter yourself?
I grew up hunting, but now I've passed that down to my daughter, Alex, who's a senior in high school. She loves to hunt and fish, and in fact, she was just on a hunting show on the Outdoor Channel.
Really?
Yes. She killed a great big buck. I think she was in Kentucky. And,
I was going to say, you didn't kill a big buck in Florida.
No,
They're like dogs.
She's a great shot, and I think she really would tell you that you're right on the conservation issue. Hunters and fishermen in the state of Florida tend to be the biggest conservationist I've seen.
Well, our license fees and all of that go towards conservation.
Very true.
And I think that's an important thing to remember when you start talking about people going out hunting. And the responsible hunters are not the ones that go out and do things that you shouldn't be doing. There's no question about it.
Right.
You have two daughters, though.
I do.
Let's talk about your second daughter.
I have a senior, Alex, who is 17, and my younger daughter, Carson, is a sophomore in high school, and they are very supportive of what I'm doing, even though I am gone a lot.
Did they, either one of them, think maybe they'd like to follow in Mom's footstep and become an attorney?
Well, they talk about it, but I don't push them too much right now. They're still young, and they have college ahead of them, so let them kind of figure that out for themselves.
Well, let's talk about the legislature itself. You have a very important position within the legislature.
Yes, I do. I'm very fortunate to have been appointed majority leader by Speaker Crisafulli, and I've very much enjoyed that position.
Let's talk about what that means. A lot of people here won't know what majority leader does. So let's talk about what you do in your role as majority leader. You've almost become a full-time legislator, have you not? As many of them have.
Yeah, pretty much. They say this is a part-time job, but it really is a full-time job. And you know, my job now takes a tremendous amount of time because of the size of our caucus. In my job as majority leader, I am responsible for guiding and leading the 81 Republican members of the Florida House of Representatives. And in that role, we provide a lot of information to our members. We make sure that they understand the issues that they are going to be voting on, that they have the support they need, the background they need, and any guidance that they would like on legislative matters. We are the partisan arm of the legislature, and then there is a corresponding Democratic office as well.
Do the legislators in either party have an opportunity to do what they think is right outside of party lines?
Yes.
Or are they brought back in pretty fast?
You know, I think that that the public out there would be very, very surprised at how well we all work together and how much of the legislation in the legislature is actually bipartisan legislation passed with unanimous votes or close to unanimous votes. And in fact, as an example,
and that never hits the newspaper.
It never hits the newspaper.
Stuff that
it never hits the newspaper. And in fact, I've got a bill now where my prime co-sponsor, meaning my partner on the bill, is a Democrat from South Florida.
Oh, really?
And I am doing another bill with Representative Darrell Rousson on driver's license suspensions, and he and I have worked very closely on this issue and are continuing to do so. So even as majority leader,
Darrell's pretty liberal.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that he is a very reasonable person who's passionate about certain issues.
All right, I'll go with that.
But even as majority leader, you know, here I am doing bills with Democratic members of our caucus who I respect very much. And I think people would be surprised to see how common that is.
Is there a lot of give and take in the Florida legislature?
A tremendous amount, yes.
I mean, I look at the national Congress and I'm disgusted, because it's so polarized that nothing gets accomplished. They had a vote yesterday on a bill. I won't even mention which one it was, because it won't matter, because next week will be another one. Nobody expected it to pass, but it was done. It's just a showcase. It seems like they're wasting a lot of money as far as our people sitting out here are concerned. And I'm kind of interested that I don't seem to hear that same thing from the people I talk to on either side in the Florida legislature, although you have a pretty good stick being a Republican with the number of votes you have.
Yeah, but you know, I agree with you completely that Washington has become dysfunctional because they've stopped talking to each other. And I believe that the interpersonal relationships among members and the communication among members is critical to having a functional process.
So do I.
And common respect for people who have every right to be there. You know, a freshman Democrat from Miami has as much right, and their vote counts as much as mine. And so they deserve the respect and they deserve the voice. And I believe that we provide that. We don't fall into the dysfunction of Washington because, for the most part, we are all working toward the same goals, which is to do the work of the people of Florida. They elected us to get a job done and to address the critical issues facing the state. And that is what we do, including passing a balanced budget every year.
And that's a wonderful thing.
Yes, and I believe we need to do that at the federal level, because people need to understand that there are trade-offs to enacting new programs or to things that they want. You can't get everything you want. You need to prioritize and be able to make decisions, hard decisions sometimes, based on those priorities.
Does Governor Scott have a line item veto?
He does.
On the budget?
Yes, Governor Scott does line item veto, and he uses it very liberally.
Now, I'd like to see that at the federal level too, in case anybody's listening and can make that happen.
Yes, it would be helpful for the federal government to balance their budget. Very helpful.
Let's talk about the budget this year. What do you see? We have a rising tide, it appears. Property values are going up. A lot of things are happening. There's new businesses moving into the state. In fact, we're looking really healthy.
Yes.
How will that affect your budget process?
Well, we've been very fortunate in the past couple of years that Florida is emerging very, very rapidly out of the recession. Our budget is very strong. In fact, the last several years we've put over $2 billion each year into a reserve fund, a rainy day fund. And those are critical decisions in case we had a terrible storm, a bad hurricane or something, some natural disaster where we needed to access that money. We've been blessed, and knock on wood that we don't have that. But the state is strong. Our bond rating is the highest it could be. We are making, I believe, very good conservative fiscal decisions. And sometimes we don't always get what we want in the budget, but it is absolutely the governor's right to go through those budget requests and veto those that he does not believe are sustainable.
Are we starting to put money back into the reserve fund to build it up more and more and more?
Oh, we do every year.
Every year?
Last year, I believe we put over $2 billion into that fund.
How big is that now? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, but we have a $70+ billion budget. We are the third largest state in the nation now, ahead of New York, based on our population. So
really?
Florida, yes, Florida is very large, and our budget. Most people may not know this, but our budget is the two items that make up 2/3 of our budget are health care and education.
Let's talk a little bit about health care. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people in this state that still don't have health care. What are we going to do to get them health care?
You are going to see a major push in the House of Representatives this year on health care and access to health care, because we want our citizens to have good health care, to be able to access the services they need, but we also want the outcomes to be good. We don't just want to put them into a government program and say, forget about it. We want to make sure that they can get to the doctors and the specialists they need, they get the well care they need. And so some of the things that you're going to be seeing legislatively on the access issue are telemedicine, the ability to sell insurance across state lines.
That would be a good thing. Or at least that seems to me it would be.
Yes, direct primary care, which is a business would be able to contract directly with a physician to provide care to their employees rather than having to go through an insurance company. That is something that is being used around the country, and I think we want to make sure it's legal here in Florida.
Believe it or not, we had a company doctor at NCR, National Cash Register Company, back in the 60s, where employees could go in if they had a problem and talk to the company doctor.
Well, and that's cutting edge, and it's cutting edge
50
now.
years ago.
But it leads to a happier workforce, more efficiency in the workforce, and it just makes sense. So that is something you'll see. An expanded use of nurse practitioners, particularly in primary care, where there is a shortage of physicians.
Okay.
You're going to see a lot of these issues being spotlighted this year on Spotlight in Government, but you're going to see that, and so just stay tuned, and we're going to try to pass some really good healthcare policy.
So we're going to try to include more people now.
Correct.
So that they can actually get health care. It's a big problem when you walk into an emergency room and it's loaded down with people with colds.
Yeah, it's not an effective and efficient use of our healthcare system. So to the extent that we can provide those people with better access to good quality health care, that's what we need to do.
Do you think we're at a point now where, and I know your conservative base might be a little upset with the question, but that the Affordable Health Care Act is now the law of the land, and we're going to have to work on it to either fix it or to move it forward?
Well, I think that when that bill was passed, it was passed without really knowing what was in it, and now they knew that it would be almost impossible to get rid of it. There are some good things in the law, like allowing children to stay on their parents' insurance policy longer and some of those things, but there are also some aspects of it that need to be changed or that need to be repealed. And I hope that in Washington they find a way to start actually working and to be able to truly examine what's good and what's bad and make the changes that we need. Yeah.
Let's talk about committees.
All right.
How are committees chosen? How many committees are there? Do you have any idea
of
the
total
number of committees?
I should know this, but I don't.
No, that's all right.
More than 10,
I'm sure
less
they
than 20.
change regularly.
They do change, and with the select committees that come and go, there are quite a few. And that is really the work of the committee structure is how the legislature does its work. Bills come in, they are referred to committee, they will start at the subcommittee level, and then they will move from there to a large full committee, and from there, if it is good policy and is passed, then it will eventually make its way to the House or Senate floor.
Let's look at the Florida bill.
Okay.
All right. You came in with an idea on whatever it was you were working with or Representative Rousseau with.
Representative Rousseau, yes,
Okay,
he and I
Rousseau.
had a bill that would...
Being for Canada, I want to call him Rousseau, but
I'm sure he's probably had that before, but we had a bill that would do away with some of the driver's license suspensions for people that had nothing to do with driving.
too many tickets.
And too many driver's license suspensions. You can get your driver's license suspended for not paying a bill. You can have your for not paying a bill on time. You can have your driver's license suspended if your insurance, which you've paid for, isn't quite as good as they would like it to be. And you don't know your driver's license is suspended in many cases until months after the fact. You've got people driving around.
Really?
Really. And in some cases, in many cases, people...
I mean, the state has suspended it, but has not notified the individual.
Not adequately. Or some people are notified, and then how do they get to work? You know, you're suspending someone's license for a regulatory infraction, not a driving-related infraction.
Now they can't pay the bill.
Now they can't pay the bill. Now they can't pay the fine. So we're looking, Representative Rousseau and I are looking at actually doing an event here in Hillsborough County to let people come in who are in a rough situation, pay their original fine, and get their driver's license
Sort
back
of an
so they can
amnesty.
get back to work. An amnesty on driver's license suspensions.
So you had that idea, or he did. One of the two of you had the idea. All right, now, what do you do with the idea?
Well, we get a bill drafted.
Okay, now who drafts it? Staff?
We have a bill drafting office, believe it or
Okay,
not,
all right,
and they are usually attorneys. They are very good at what they do. The bill is drafted. It is filed with the House of
So wait,
Representatives.
you go to that office and say, I'd like a bill drafted on this. Can any representative walk in there and say, I need a bill on this, and they do it, or do they have to get permission from somebody in
Yes.
order to get it done?
Any member can do it. I typically draft a lot of my own legislation, at least roughly, because I'm an attorney and I can
sure.
do that. But yes, they are able to take an idea, or they can take a specific, rough draft and put it into final form. So they're very good at what they do.
Okay, so they've prepared it. Now, you and Rousseau, you have it. You're
Yep.
ready to go with it.
Yep.
Now, where do you go?
We push a button on the computer and file it. Everything's electronic, and then it
you're
is
filing it with who?
with the House of Representatives, with the
Okay.
clerk.
Okay.
From that, the Speaker's office will refer the bill to committees based on the subject matter. So, for example, that bill went to criminal justice, I believe.
So the
and
speaker can decide whether to refer it or not at that point, or he must or she must refer it.
all bills are referred to committee. And
okay.
then the committee chairman make the decision as to whether or not they will put the bill on an agenda to be heard.
Okay,
And
so at that point it could die.
it could, and many, many do at that point.
Okay.
There are a lot of stop gaps along the way that make sure that only the best policy goes forward.
Okay.
So moving down, we would, assuming that it's agendaed in a subcommittee, we would have a hearing. It would be voted upon by the subcommittee and then referred to the next committee on the list and on up the chain.
Let me drop back.
Okay.
Your committee chairman will be the majority party.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So
In the
so-
House, in the Senate, a committee chairman can be from either party or from either party.
So within the House, that could be blocked from a political standpoint, correct? And not
Correct.
sent forward? So
Correct.
There's no real criteria. If the committee chairman says, I'm not taking it, it's dead right there.
Pretty much, yeah.
Somebody could lean on him from up on top, or she from up on top, correct?
Correct.
And say, no, I think you really ought to look at this again. Okay.
And that happens.
Yeah,
That
just trying
happens.
to get a feeling for it. Okay. The committee chairman says, okay, I'm going to have a look at this, and gives it to a subcommittee? Or to
The
full committee?
subcommittee is usually already referred to by the speaker, and
Okay.
so it would go through the subcommittee first, then up to the full committee, and it would just continue up the chain until it was ready to be heard on the House floor.
Okay, and then when it's heard on the House floor, it's put to a vote?
Yes.
Or is it have to be read 3 times, or?
Well, the second and third readings are on the House floor.
Okay.
The Rules Committee would create what's known as a special order calendar, meaning these are the bills we're going to hear today. all right? And
Now, are they published ahead of time so
Yes.
House members can read them before they go on the floor?
yes, yes, we have full access to bills and staff reports all the time, as do the public, on our website. And then the sponsor debates the bill on the House floor, answers questions on the bill, and ultimately it's voted upon.
How many bills, roughly, I'm not asking for how many would be approved in one session?
It changes, but out of a few thousand that are usually filed, maybe 200 to 300 max are actually approved.
You know, before we come on the air, we were talking about one of the bills in Congress and not having been read completely. Well, in fact, the affordable health care. With a couple of thousand bills to start with, and then a couple of hundred that finally make it down and get approved, how is it possible that you folks have any chance of reading them all? Do you have to have staff read and give you a synopsis on them? Or?
Well, you don't need to read every bill that's filed.
But you have to vote on it.
Well, no, because many bills that are filed are never heard.
Okay, but the
So-
200,
So yes, and you're
that's
expected.
a lot of,
It
that's
is a lot. It
There's
is a
got
lot.
to be an awful lot of homework.
There's a lot of homework. Staff does an excellent job of providing analysis, but at the end of the day, it's up to individual members to do their homework and read the bills.
Wow,
Yeah,
that is a lot of reading.
it's a lot of work for a part-time job.
How does the lobbyist play in all of this?
You know, I think a lot the lobbyists, to a large extent, get a bad rap because they are representing interests that have are representing groups or interests that have very important things before the legislature. And lobbyists don't just represent big corporations. The Boys and Girls Club has a lobbyist. The American Cancer Society has a lobbyist. The groups that do substance abuse and treatment and those sorts of things have a lobbyist. And I actually find them very useful for education. Because they know their industry better than anyone else.
I would assume they did.
Yes,
They're making a living in it.
And it's incumbent on the member not just to hear one side, because if there is a lobbyist for something, there is almost certainly a lobbyist that's going to be on the other side. So tapping into that information source and hearing from both sides is a very good and important part of this process. And
What are the restrictions on lobbyists as far as it applies to the state House? I assume that is different on the House and the Senate, or is it pretty much the same?
It's the same. Lobbyists have to register to represent a client, and that is public information. There is a gift ban, so lobbyists cannot purchase anything for a legislator, not even a bottle of water, nothing. And that's pretty much it.
A total ban?
Complete ban, yes.
I guess I don't agree with that either, but I can see where you have a problem with deciding what they can have and what they can't have.
Yeah, I think at the time that they passed it, I think that there was a lot of...
That was Senator Lee that
yes, Senator
pushed
Lee.
that strongly. And I was
Yes.
for it at the time because it had gotten completely out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in Ohio, we would go up to the Ohio State football games, and the lobbyists would have these great tailgating parties. And you had to have your little button in your collar in order to be able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
But there was everything you could even ask for, every treat that man made, including all the bottles of whatever you wanted.
Well, and I think that it was just easier at the end of the day when Senator Lee passed this legislation to just say none than to try to figure out how to say that some is okay and not, some things are okay and not others. It's just easier to say nothing. And frankly, for me, it's easy because I just pay for everything myself.
Representative Young, we've talked about a lot of things that I wanted to talk
Mm-hmm.
about. Are there some things yet that you'd like to get across to your audience and to the people who are listening?
Well, you know, this is going to be a very big year. We've had a lot of special sessions so far. We have a special session coming up in about 3 weeks to redraw the Senate lines or the Senate maps for Senate districts. And that is going to be a very interesting process. I think that your viewers might want to stay tuned because it is very important and a lot of people will be affected. So that is coming up.
The newspapers have been full of that.
Yes.
Where are we at this point?
Well, currently we have passed maps in the House and the Senate dealing with congressional redistricting, and those are before the court. So the court is now in the driver's seat to select which of those maps they find the most compliant with the Constitution. So now our job is to go back and do the same thing with the Senate maps and try and make sure that we comply with the constitutional amendments. So we can't favor or disfavor a political party. We cannot favor or disfavor an incumbent. They need to be compact and respect geographic boundaries and city and county boundaries and so forth. So it's a very tall order.
And ethnic backgrounds.
Well, only in certain federally protected districts under the Voting Rights Act. But it's a very complex process, and we're going to just do the very best that we can.
I think as long as everybody keeps it in the open, that everybody sees the whole thing happening, it really isn't going to be that difficult.
Well, I hope so.
I
hope
at least
so.
I hope that's the way it is. One last question.
Sure.
The people of the state wanted more money spent on bringing property into the state, property for conservation and things of that nature. The newspapers are saying, no, we're not doing that. How do you feel?
Well, 75% of the voters approved Amendment 1 last year to provide more money for conservation and using a significant portion of dock stamp revenue to do that. I believe that we have fully complied with Amendment 1.
Right.
It's not just buying land, it's taking care of the many, many thousands, maybe millions of acres of land that we own as a state and being good trustees of that land. So we are moving forward with implementation of Amendment 1. You'll see more of that this year, and it will include a variety of things. It will include acquisition of sensitive land. It will include maintenance of land, protection of springs.
Oh, we need to do that badly.
Protection of water resources and alternative water supply and a lot of other things.
We're going to see water wars before this is all over. I mean, I was just out in California, saw a Boy Scout be mugged by a nun to get his canteen. I mean, it's awful.
Well, we are addressing the water issue here, and alternative water supply is something I've worked on and will continue to work on. And we really are taking the water issues very seriously. And so stay tuned. You will see more on that this session.
Representative Young, I always appreciate your coming on the show. Will you come back?
Thank you. I'll be back
I've
whenever
got
you ask me.
A lot more things to learn, and you're really good at educating the audience, and me, and that's important. I think an educated electorate is a very good thing. I'm not sure that Winston Churchill was correct when he said if you want to feel bad about democracy, have a 5-minute chat with the average citizen. Now, I think the average citizen really wants to know what's going on. They just don't want to hear people yell at each other back and forth.
Right.
I thank you so much for being with me. I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. We just had with us Representative Dana Young, District 60, Florida House of Representatives. And again, Dana, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.